welcome to a very special bonus episode of What the Tech from Boast AI. Today, Boast AI's own Curtis Griffith and Joshua Martin address the most commonly asked questions about R&D tax credits. From determining eligibility to mastering documentation techniques, they'll guide you through all the crucial aspects that matter to your business. This conversation was originally featured as part of Boast AI's weekly Innovators live series on LinkedIn. I hope you enjoy the show and stay tuned for next week's regularly scheduled episode of What the Tech, featuring innovators from across North America's tech ecosystem.
There we go. Good morning, Josh. How's everything out east?
Doing well. How are things out in the beautiful province of Alberta?
Awesome. Yeah, we've got some good coverage west and east. We're in Alberta. We're just recovering from 10 days of stampede, so always the first week after. So but it's Friday, so we've had our chance to recover and we're ready to go. So.
Beautiful. Yeah, out here in Quebec. So we have the kind of Quebec Alberta link here. So it's kind of exciting to kind of see the nuances. Both of our lovely provinces are special provinces for many reasons, but tax credit and shred are one in particular that I think we'll kind of dive into a little bit.
Absolutely, Josh. So I think we've given folks a few seconds here that are joining us live. And, today we're just going to chat, commonly asked questions about R&D tax or SRED here in Canada, and that was a great precursor, Josh. So maybe we'll jump into that conversation first. Some of the provincial uniqueness benefits of the SRED tax program here in Canada, and particularly Alberta and Quebec, which we're well positioned to speak of. So maybe I'll bounce that off you. Maybe you can jump on some of the Quebec. The Quebec specific items of SRED.
Yeah, so in Quebec and Alberta, we're going to see really high, above average provincial rates. So I think it's around 82% of salaries will be returned in Quebec of eligible work. In Alberta, it's not quite that high, but it's still above the Canadian average. But with those benefits, the provinces do have more control on the shred credit than traditionally. And so what we're going to see is longer disbursement time. So the federal portion of the credit will be, dispersed within 2 to 3 months. And then we're going to see a longer lag in both Quebec and Alberta. That's my understanding as the Albertan.
Well said. Absolutely. And in Alberta, we like to make it even more complicated. So there's a formula for the provincial amount, but it can be a range where you get closer to that, sometimes 72% of eligible expense on the provincial portion that can qualify, depending on the calculation that we of course do. So, and same in Alberta, the federal portion dispersed as usual, and then a little bit later the provincial disbursement. So that's just some of the benefits of living in our beautiful home provinces of Alberta and Quebec. So
lovely.
Yeah.
I'm curious, let's kind of dive into kind of some of our most frequently asked questions. And one thing I've noticed is people often ask, what type of research and development activities can kind of qualify for shred? So maybe I think that's a good starting point if you want to kind of field that question, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll dig into the detail a little bit because this is very common, especially speaking with technical folks. There can sometimes be a feeling of nothing's eligible. We're not sending a rocket to Mars, so how could I possibly be eligible? So we're looking for that problem, that roadblock that you're solving. And so any technical folks on your team working on a problem, working on a roadblock, and then having an iterative process to solve that problem. So not a shotgun approach, but anything that feels like a roadblock, a challenge in the technology within the business. So not the product market fit, not the marketing, which I wish we could solve for many customers, but that engineering work. And I think for the message for most technical folks is have a conversation, and we'd be happy to have that with you. Like, let's dig into that work, because often, not always, often there's more work that's eligible than would first meet the eye. So there's the obvious stuff, sending a rocket to Mars, but then there's all these little technology problems that you're constantly solving. And as engineers and technical folks, you feel like that's just my job. That's why I'm here, to solve these problems. And those very often are eligible for the program. So that doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be the newest, brightest thing. Those problems that you're solving in the technology are really where we can dig in and maximize that entitlement through shred for you.
Yeah, I'm always like blown away when you're talking to different engineers and developers about how humble and kind of problem solving oriented those types of people are. But it's up to us as shred consultants to kind of pull out the eligibility and kind of break through that kind of humbleness and say, no, what you're doing is shred eligible. There is a lot of, like you kind of spoke to, technical uncertainty. Even if for you that's kind of that standard iterative approach is part of the scientific method. That's kind of seems so natural to an engineer or developer, but for us, that just because it's natural does not mean it's not shred eligible.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna jump and pivot a little bit to something different, but something that comes up all the time. And I'll ask you, Josh, if you can speak to a little bit about, in the context of SRED and preparation, contracts and exit structures and things that folks should be looking at and keeping an eye out for.
Yeah, one thing I hear a lot with working with different kind of clients and partners and prospects is kind of the complexity and variance in different types of shred agreements, engagement letters, and there's a lot of confusion on it. One thing that I always like to counsel is to make sure that if you're not happy with, just in the case that you're not happy with your shred consultant's work, make sure that in the agreement, if it's a multi-year agreement, there is some sort of exit structure. So you're not tied to this subpar work for several years. So make sure that you're able to, year one, you're not happy with the work. The following year, there's a clear path to exit, and then you can go and find a shred consultant that kind of fits your needs. The reason I like to say this is you don't need to be tied down to one consultant for 5 years. The quality of the work of the shred consultant should speak for itself. So that's just kind of a tip that I like to kind of remind people of, is the quality of the work of the shred consultant should mean that you want to stay with them, not the complexity and how difficult it is of the kind of agreement is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then shameless plug, our motto: volunteers, not prisoners. So
yes,
again, no one can force you to file shred. It's your entitlement. It's your work. It's your money. So stick to the volunteer side, not the prisoner side.
Yeah, I like that. I haven't heard that yet, so maybe I need to get like a tattoo of that or something.
Yeah.
You can start putting that everywhere.
Absolutely. And maybe I'm going to double up. I'm going to confuse you, Josh, and double up on two questions for you, because in the context of that contract, the understanding of audit, and very often, my experience, audits aren't included. It's just a thing that happens. So maybe you can speak to a little bit about the importance of clarity on the language in your agreement on audit and how that works.
Yeah, so similar to kind of the length of the contracts that we've seen in kind of the different exit strategies, audits is similar. We're seeing in different shred consultants putting some of them, the audits included, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's an additional payment, sometimes it's not. So there's a lot of variance in what we're going to see in the marketplace. One thing I like to recommend once again is making sure that your interests are in line with those of your consultant. So if the audit's included, that in your cost structure, then it is in your consultant's interests to make sure that your claim is built to be very easily defended, to make sure to assuring that they're very thorough in the entire building of that shred claim, putting together that shred claim. So that's my piece of advice: is find in all parts of your agreement, your engagement letter with your shred provider, make sure that your interests are aligned to the maximum, because that means that they're going to be putting together a shred claim that obviously benefits you in the short term, so through the size of it, but also in the thoroughness. So in case of an audit, your shred provider made sure that everything's in order and the audit will go as smoothly as possible.
Right.
That's really my advice here. Is I really recommend having that audit included in your pricing, so your consultant's going to do a very thorough job as he's putting together the claim, and there's not this kind of crazy fire drill audit. What did you say here? What did we claim here? We want to be thorough and making sure incentives are aligned kind of assures that.
Yeah, that's aligning human incentives, and can save you a lot of pain, making sure, like you said, that if your consultant's going to put their name on that claim, make sure that they're ready to defend every piece of it in front of you with the CRA, for sure. Yes. And those reviews do happen. They, for those that's maybe a jump in, the audit is a part of SRED. You can't avoid it. It will happen. doing quality work and filing quality claims will help. But at some point, if you are a part of the program, expect a review, and not necessarily a negative thing, just the CRA doing their job in diligence. So,
yeah, and I think that I love that you started that off by saying, "Hey, SHRED is an entitlement. The aim and objective of SHRED is to help Canadian companies and non-Canadian companies invest, hire, take risks in Canada. So, if you're doing those sort of activities, you're entitled to those very generous SHRED credits. And another kind of common question, kind of what types of companies can claim SHRED? What are the other conditions? One question we get a lot is, can a company claim SHRED if it's not profitable? Or if it's operating at a loss? We get that all the time. So kind of, I would love to hear your kind of two cents.
For sure. All the time. And often folks are coming with that question, having thought it was factual. We're not in a profitable position. We're not paying taxes. So very clearly, no expectation to be in a taxable position to file for SRED, particularly as a Canadian controlled private corporation. So that's when the refund is 100% cash back to the business. So no need to be in a taxable position there, regardless of revenues, all of that. In a non-CCPC environment, as a public co or with a particular ownership or influence, then that can matter because it's an actual tax credit that comes back to the business. Now, even then, those tax credits can be carried forward for 20 years in the business, so you have line of sight on your profitability and your taxable position. That can become an asset to the business and start collecting those credits, knowing that you will become profitable. But yeah, very much the majority of our customers for sure, not in a taxable position, not even in a revenue position yet, definitely able to take advantage of the program and have that non-dilutive funding be a part of your growth and your strategy to continue moving forward.
Yeah, and it's all on that expenditure piece.
Right.
It's once we start to see expenditures, that's when we're starting to see a large potential for SHRED eligibility.
Yeah. Great clarity, Josh. I gave you the long answer to the short question, but separating, it's all about the expenditure, not about the revenue. So the revenue can start getting into the tax piece. So if you're spending money in Canada, solving problems, maybe that's the summary. I think we're getting close to wrapping up the summary. If you're spending money on solving problems in Canada, then let's have a conversation and see what we can do to help.
I love that. Beautiful summary to wrap it all up. But
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have another one of these, discuss more commonly asked questions. But otherwise, Curtis, great to see you.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Josh. And hope you have an awesome weekend. And for everyone listening, enjoy your Friday and enjoy your weekends as well.
Yes. See you, Curtis.
Perfect. Thanks, Josh.